In 1845, two state-of-the-art British naval ships sailed into the Arctic Ocean. Their mission was to conquer the final, charted section of the Northwest Passage. They were heavily reinforced, packed with years of supplies, and led by a veteran commander. None of the 129 men aboard were ever seen again. For over 170 years, their fate remained one of the darkest and most haunting mysteries in the history of exploration. What really happened to the Franklin expedition? The mission was a showcase of British ambition. Sir John Franklin, a respected Royal Navy officer, was chosen to lead the charge. His ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, were former warships, refitted for the ice. They boasted advanced steam engines, iron-plated bows, and enough tinned food to last for 3 years. In May of 1845, they sailed from England with cheering crowds wishing them well. It was the last time any of them would be seen by European eyes. The expedition sailed into the Canadian Arctic, and in late July 1845 was spotted by whalers in Baffin Bay. After that, silence. No letters, no signals, no reports. Just a complete and total information blackout. 1 year passed, then 2. By 1848, what started as concern in Britain had morphed into national alarm. The Admiralty began launching one of the largest search and rescue operations in history. Multiple rescue missions scoured the vast, unforgiving Arctic landscape. Search parties braved brutal conditions, temperatures that could freeze a person solid in minutes, months of endless darkness, and constantly shifting, treacherous sea ice. At first, they found nothing. It was as if 2 entire ships and 129 men had simply vanished from the face of the earth. The mystery deepened. The public back home became obsessed. Where were Franklin and his men? Years later, the first real clues began to emerge, not from British searchers, but from the local Inuit people. Their oral histories, passed down through generations, spoke of chilling encounters. They described seeing white men, emaciated and desperate, dragging a heavy boat across the frozen tundra. They told stories of a ship trapped and crushed by the ice, and of starving men marching south, away from their only shelter. These accounts painted a grim picture. The first concrete evidence came in 1859. A search party led by Captain Francis McClintock discovered a small, rock-corn message left behind by the crew. This document, now known as the Franklin Note, was a bombshell, written in the margins of a standard naval form. It revealed the expedition's fate in cold, clinical detail. The ships had become hopelessly trapped in the ice in September 1846. Sir John Franklin himself had died on June 11, 1847. In April 1848, the surviving 105 men, now under the command of Captain Crozier, decided to abandon the ships. Their plan was to track hundreds of miles south to a fur trading post on the mainland, and after that entry, the written record simply ends. There was no explanation of what happened next, no account of their desperate march. Later discoveries filled in some of the horrifying gaps. Over the following decades, explorers found skeletons scattered along the Arctic coast of King William Island. They found personal items, silver cutlery, books, officers, swords abandoned in the snow. Items that were senselessly heavy for starving men to carry. Most disturbingly, archaeologists found cut marks on many of the human bones. It was the undeniable proof of the last, desperate taboo, cannibalism. The evidence pointed to a complete collapse of order. The men had succumbed to a terrible combination of starvation, scurvy, and hypothermia, their discipline dissolving in the face of unimaginable suffering. So, what caused this catastrophe? One of the leading theories is lead poisoning. The expedition's 3-year supply of tinned food was a modern marvel, but the tins were sealed with lead solder, likely applied in a hurry. Modern analysis of the crew's remains has shown incredibly high levels of lead in their bodies. This lead exposure wouldn't have killed them directly, but it would have caused severe neurological and physical problems, including confusion, paranoia, and poor judgment. It might explain why the men made such fatal decisions, like abandoning the relative safety of their ships for a hopeless death march. Another major factor was simply the environment. Ice core data suggests that the years of the Franklin expedition coincided with an unusually cold period in the Arctic. The sea ice was thicker and lasted longer than anticipated. The Northwest Passage, which they believed would open up, remained a solid, impassable barrier. The ships were locked in a prison of ice for 2 winters, and there was no escape. Nature itself may have dealt the fatal blow, making survival impossible no matter how well prepared they were. But we can't ignore the element of human error. Some historians argue that the decision to abandon the ships was a catastrophic mistake. The ships offered shelter, some remaining supplies, and a clear landmark for any potential rescuers. Why leave them for a brutal overland journey, dragging heavy lifeboats and useless personal belongings? It suggests a leadership failure, a breakdown in command where desperation overrode logic. Was it lead poisoning that clouded their minds, or was it simply the psychological toll of being trapped at the end of the world? For more than a century and a half, the ships themselves remained lost. But then, in the 21st century, the mystery took a stunning turn. In 2014, a Canadian research team found the wreck of HMS Erebus, lying in shallow water, remarkably preserved. 2 years later, in 2016, they found HMS Terror in even more pristine condition. Its cabins and storerooms eerily intact. The world watched, holding its breath. Surely the ships would hold the final answers, but they didn't. No logbooks, no journals, no final messages from the crew have been found. The ships were ghost ships, silent witnesses to a tragedy they couldn't explain. And so, the mystery remains. We know when the ships were trapped. We know when Franklin died. We know when the crew abandoned them, but we don't know the full story of their final days. We don't know who died first, or how long the last survivors held on. The final, desperate chapter of the Franklin expedition is still missing, locked away somewhere in the Arctic silence. The expedition was supposed to be a triumph of the British Empire, a final victory in the age of exploration. Instead, it became a chilling ghost story, a warning carved into ice. 129 men sailed to the edge of the known world and were consumed, defeated, not by an enemy, by nature, isolation, and their own human frailty. Despite the discovery of the shipwrecks and the recovery of their remains, the Arctic has never fully given up its secrets, and until it does, the lost Franklin expedition will continue to haunt us as one of history's greatest unsolved files. Thank you for watching. If you're fascinated by mysteries like this, make sure to follow for more.